1. I'm 24, female, and probably couldn't defend myself against a 10-year-old. I went to the grocery store to pick up some things the other night. When I got to the register, there was a man helping bag my groceries while the cashier was checking me out. I was buying some dog treats, and he asked what kind of dog I had. I said a golden doodle. I have a golden doodle. My boyfriend has a German shepherd. And he said, "Oh my God, me too." I didn't really get an off vibe from him, but he would stare and not break eye contact. At all. I chalked it up to him missing social cues and trying to be friendly. After I paid, he started pushing the cart for me out the door. This isn't uncommon. They typically help you take your things to your car. I have social anxiety and feel very awkward and guilty having them do that for me, so I always say, "I'm good, but thank you so much." And every other time they've said, "Okay, have a good one." But when I said goodbye to this guy, he said, "No, I got it," very bluntly, and stared at me the whole time. I instantly got a bad vibe. It was about 8 at night, and barely anyone was there. He said, "Well, my shift is over, so I'm walking to my car anyway." Weird, because he didn't clock out, but maybe he had before he did the last checkout. He was very talkative in the store, asking tons of questions about my dog and telling me about his, but when we got outside he barely said much. I started asking questions about his dog because I felt anxious with the silence, but I really regret that. He took it as an interest. He immediately said, "Well, if you give me your number, you can meet him," and just stared yet again. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't give my number to strangers." I didn't want to say no because I have a boyfriend, because he seemed like he might get angry over that. I don't know, just a feeling in the moment. We had loaded all the groceries into my trunk, and I was thinking, thank God I can get out of here now, but no. The cart was between me and him, and he was positioned on the driver's side, so in order to get to my door, I would have to go past him. I said, "Well, I gotta get home, my dog is waiting for his treats." He just stared. I realized I was going to have to go past him if I wanted to leave. So I looked around to see if anyone else was in the parking lot in case something more happened. No one. I started to get extremely anxious. He could push the cart into me or just grab me himself. I have had a traumatic experience before, and my problem is that I don't have fight or flight, just freeze. Just like that, he walked away, pushing the cart to where they are returned in the parking lot. I took the chance to get in the car and I locked the doors immediately. I wish I left then, but I needed a moment to breathe. I saw in my side mirror him getting into his car. I quickly put the car in drive and drove out. The exit is a stoplight, and just my luck it's red and I'm turning left. I see his car behind me, not 30 seconds later. I panicked, but then thought he said he's going home, it's nothing. I only live 2 minutes from the grocery store. I made the turn and he was hanging back. I didn't put my blinker on for the next turn. He made it too. The next turn was a stoplight, and then my turn for my road. As I get to the light, it's red again. I thought maybe I should drive to a police station just in case. But as soon as that thought came, the light went green. My boyfriend and I only moved here 2 months ago, so I couldn't think in my head how to get to the station, and I'm terrible at using my phone while driving. I'm not even 30 seconds from the last turn to our street. Our street is a dead end with only 4 houses on it. It's very long, and we are at the end. No one goes down it unless they live there or are lost. I turn, and he makes the turn too. Fuck, I think. I literally just directed him to my house. Thankfully, I have Bluetooth, so I called my boyfriend. I said, "A guy from the grocery store is following me. Turn all the lights on, open the gate, and let Nike out." Nike is his German shepherd, and he was trained to be a German police dog and then got extra bite training. He can hold someone for up to 6 hours. So now, knowing he was outside, I wasn't nervous. I was nervous that my boyfriend wouldn't have gotten the gate opened in time, and I would either have to sit in my car or get out fast and put the code in. As I pulled up, I saw the gate was opened, thank God. My boyfriend was on the front porch with Nike on leash. I'm not trying to have someone killed unless necessary, and he had his gun in the air. I fly through and down the driveway. This fucker follows. Does he not see the gun and guard dog? Well, he did at that moment, because my boyfriend let Nike go and he charged the guy's car, jumped up at the driver window, frothing at the mouth, showing all teeth and hair on his back standing up. He looked terrifying even to me, and he was protecting me. I gave Nike his command to come back. hoping this guy got the hint that if he gets out of the car, he will die. He did. He reversed the car so goddamn fast and got out of the driveway he nearly hit the gate. I collapsed on the front porch and hugged my boyfriend, and I got a steak for dinner. I reported the man to the grocery store because I remembered his name on his tag purposefully. They later contacted me that he had been served termination papers. 2. When I was 18, I started working at a local restaurant fairly close to my house. I don't drive because of my claustrophobia and fear of loss of control, so it was nice working at a place where I could walk to in less than 15 minutes. About a month into the job, I was working late one night, and a middle-aged man comes in, and since the restaurant was practically empty, I thought it would be harmless to talk with him about his day. He sat at the bar and only drank a Bud Light. Didn't even touch his chips and salsa. I don't know why I remembered this detail. He went on about how his week was rough. His mom had died recently, leaving him and his brothers parentless since his dad had died a few years back. Clearly, he had a lot on his mind, and I'm a very empathetic person, so I just listened. His brother somehow managed to get all of the life insurance in their parents' will, leaving him nothing. He was super broken up about it, and I really felt for the guy. All he had was his job at Pizza Hut. Closing time came and the guy left, thanking me for his hospitality. I didn't think anything of it. The next week I was working late again. He comes in and drinks his usual Bud Light and chats with me. Our conversations got deeper, and since I figured he didn't have anyone else to talk to, I listened to his problems. I try not to talk about myself to customers, but he was asking questions about me, so I answered them. He asked about my hobbies, home life, school, etc. I told him I liked doing art, and he showed me some of the wood etchings he had done. They were really impressive, so I told him that. And he asked to see my art, and I showed him some pictures on my phone. Again, I thought all this was harmless, so I didn't think much of it. Closing time came again, and he left. He showed up a few times a week after that, and we had our usual discussions. I started noticing that when I had to close the restaurant, he would stay until the minute we closed. I started to feel uneasy about it, but I figured I was just paranoid because of my anxiety. I brushed it off until my coworkers were working at night when I was off, and he came in asking for me. They said I wasn't working, and he demanded they tell him when I was working next. They lied and said they didn't know. He seemed pressed. They said he didn't stay to drink and left just after that. Now I was freaked out. He started coming into the restaurant every day. He came in on Christmas Eve and again stayed till close. I was trying to be cautious around him and didn't say much. Then he mentioned he wanted to bring me some art supplies because he had a bunch he didn't know how to use and didn't want them to go to waste. I said that I was okay and I didn't know how to use them either. He insisted. Then what he said next really freaked me out. He told me, "I can come by your house and drop it off. It's too heavy to carry while you walk home." I had never told him I walk home. My mind was running a mile a minute. Had he been watching me? Had he been following me? Did he know where I live? I told him I was fine and didn't need the supplies. I repeated that over and over again until he seemed to get the point. Later I told my manager about it, and he understood why I was so freaked out around him. He told me that I could hide when he came in, so he thought I wasn't there. He said he couldn't really kick him out of the restaurant because he hadn't done anything to harm anyone, but he was willing to protect me from potential harm. It worked for a few weeks. The guy came in often, and so I wasn't there and left. Until one busy Friday night we were slammed and I couldn't hide. We were so busy I had no idea he was even there. My coworker let me know and said that he had been watching me like a hawk all night. I avoided going around the bar where he sat, so he wouldn't try to say anything to me, until one moment where I had to maneuver around a family that was getting up to leave. He put his hand around my arm and asked for me to listen to him for just a second. I told him I was very busy and had to get back to work. He just handed me a slip of paper with his name and number on it and told me to call him whenever I wanted the art supplies. I told him that it was inappropriate. He told me he was just being friendly. I told my manager, and he told me I could go home, but I was scared to walk home because I thought he would follow me. I called my dad and he came into the restaurant and made sure the guy saw me leave with him. He had stopped showing up after that. I thought I had seen the last of him until one afternoon he came in and I didn't have time to hide because I was cleaning a table. He sat at the bar and my coworker was taking care of him. I thought he decided to leave me alone at that point, so I let my guard down. Wrong move. I was cleaning a table with my back facing the bar, and suddenly he had me cornered in the booth. He told me to stay where I was and that he had something for me in his car. He left, and I ran to my manager's office and told him everything. He told me to hide in the kitchen, and when the man came in, he asked him to leave and not come back, and that he had made me and other workers very uncomfortable with his actions. I peeked out of the kitchen and saw him leave, pissed with a huge bag of God knows what. He saw me and stopped, but he decided it wasn't worth it and left for good. It's been a year since that happened, but I still get scared any time I walk past a local Pizza Hut, or whenever a middle-aged man sits at the bar. I can't interact with customers like I used to out of fear that they'll be like him. So yeah, 50-year-old Pizza Hut guy, let's not meet again. 3. I'm a 21-year-old male. It was July 4th, 2019. I live in Kansas in the USA. At the time, I worked as a corrections officer at a maximum security prison on the night shift. The cell house I was in charge of was a maximum general population, 1 man to a cell. This is where murderers, rapists, and overall the worst of society were housed. Before work, I was doing the typical American 4th of July thing, grilling, blowing up fireworks, had a beer or two, having a great time with my now wife and family. My wife kept telling me I needed to just call in sick and take the day without pay. I said no, because we were a little behind on bills. I really wish I had listened to her now. As the night went on, it came time for us to leave my mom's and for me to go home and get ready for work. I took my wife home and dropped her off, got ready, and left for work. My wife's car was broken down, so she was stuck at home for the night. As I drove to work, which was about an hour drive away, I watched the fireworks going off all around. It was sad. I had never had to work on the 4th before. After I got to work and got all my equipment, I got into my cell house. Business as usual. Inmates were showered and locked up. I got my night cleaning crew out so they could clean the rest of the cell house. I met up with my partner for the night in the officer section to get our briefing from the last shift. Fast forward an hour into my shift, so it's now right around 12:30 a.m. Another officer came into the cell house, so now there is 3 of us. This happened often on night shift, as there was nothing to do except rounds every half hour or so. Out of nowhere, we hear an inmate laughing like a witch, like a cackle. That was strange, but nothing to be alarmed with. Drugs were a bad problem in that facility, still is, as far as I know. Eventually, after a few more cackles, I decided to go see who was making the sound, in case they were high. I walked through and checked all 200 inmates. Nothing. There were a small few that were even awake. So I brushed it off and just went back to my office. My partner and the other officer were asking if there was anyone that needed their cells searched. I couldn't think of anyone in particular I suspected of having anything. So I went to check all the cells again to see if I could get a whiff of smoke or see something. As I was walking on the second-story cell run, I found an inmate that was acting weird. He was in his bed facing the wall, talking. This was also common, as there were a lot of inmates with minor mental issues. I figured he was high because he turned and looked at me and told me to fuck off. I was going to leave him alone, but the disrespect made me change my mind. Time is now 12:40 a.m., July 5th. I walk back to the office and tell the other 2 officers which cell he was in, and I wanted him searched. Cell 218. So now the cell house is laid out, and there are 100 cells per level. From the officer's station, you can see from the north side, 1st and 2nd floor, but you can't see the south side, unless you walk the 50 feet over to it. Picture the movie Shawshank Redemption type cell house, except instead of being able to look through and see cells across, you just see a wall. The cells are literally back to back. As the officers go to pull him out of his cell to search it, I went to the ground floor and was watching from below. Reason why, I wanted to get the inmate on the ground level and not the 2nd floor, and that was where, for protection from going over the edge, was a handrail. I noticed the inmate was taking forever to get out of his cell. He came out in shorts and a do-rag, which is weird because he wasn't fully clothed. Didn't even put sandals on, just shorts and a do-rag, yet took 5 minutes to get out. This made me nervous. The inmate was a 6-foot tall and 250-pound muscle-bound dude. Definitely had size on us. So from the ground I holler at him and tell him to come down to the ground, and that he could use the phone to check his email or commissary. He declined my offer, which never happens. I knew something was up. He was watching them search his cell from the control panel box. This was alarming. They were in his cell. I was on the ground. He could easily have ambushed them. He would have made it to them before I could get up the stairs, so to try to keep them safe, I went up the stairs to the inmate. He was standing in the corner, away against the handrails at the top of the stairs. He knew I was the OIC, officer in charge of that cell house, and he knew I was the one that saw him talking to himself. He asked me why I was having his cell searched. I lied. I said, "It's nothing personal, man. I have a quota I have to fill for the cell searched in a night, and you were awake. So I chose you to have searched. It'll just take a second." He was uneasy. He was pacing. Something wasn't right. Then I saw it. He had just turned right, and I saw in his do-rag the Samsung logo reflecting the cell house light. Shit. I knew there was going to be a problem as soon as I saw it. He had a cell phone. I called over the radio for 2 additional officers to come to me. The inmate didn't seem to notice I made the call. My supervisors responded, saying 2 of them were on their way. Side note. At this time, only segregation officers had protective vests. So out of the 5 of us that were now in there, only 1 had a vest. I was not that one. The officers were, names changed, obviously. South had a vest, McCormick, Collins, Sheffield, and me. Time is now 12:58 a.m. As soon as South and McCormick got up to me, I told the inmate to turn around and cuff up. South and McCormick were on the inmate's right side. I was in front of him. "Why?" he angrily asked me. I refused to give him a reason at first. After a few minutes I had enough. I told him, "Look, man, I can see the cell phone in your do-rag. You know you're not supposed to have that." The inmate gets a defeated look on his face, but fire in his eyes. His body relaxes, and he slowly reaches up to retrieve the phone. But does he pull out a cell phone? Nope. He pulls out a 6-inch sharpened metal rod with ripped fabric wrapped around the bottom as a handle. Everything froze for me. I knew I was going to die. Everything starts moving again. I now have an inmate twice my size, charging me, thrusting quickly and repeatedly towards me. "Oh shit," was all I managed to yell. I immediately went into defensive mode, trying to grab his arm and disarm him. His wrist kept slipping. I couldn't keep a hold of it, but at least I managed to block his attempts at my lower abdomen. Suddenly he aimed high and went for my chest. I felt it make contact. I had just been stabbed in the right part of my chest. "Spray him!" I yelled at the top of my lungs. McCormick was already working on spraying the MK9OC spray. For my military readers, you know what I mean. For others, MK9 comes as a pressurized spray bottle, about 20 fluid ounces. You can buy it at camping stores in the USA. It's called bear spray. It's the stuff that you spray in a bear's eye so you can get away. South had come up behind the inmate and grabbed him around the chest and pulled him backwards right as McCormick sprayed. I didn't realize it at the time, but the spray hit me, the inmate and South, as well as everything near us. I was able to turn and run. I ran around the stair railing, past the control box, and out onto the run of cells on the 2nd story. I ran past a few cells and turned around to see he wasn't chasing me. But South was wrestling him to the ground while gagging on the OC, as was I and McCormick. Sheffield, having heard the commotion, came running out of the cell, saw what was happening, and ran in to help. The inmate grabbed South by the vest and tried to throw him over the end of the landing. But South dropped to his knees before he went over. I grabbed my shoulder mic and screamed into it, "Level A response to Charlie 2, now!" Dispatch said something back, but I didn't hear it. I started to charge back in to help save South. Before I could get away from the cell I was in front of, Collins grabbed me from behind and told me not to go. Due to the layout of the runs, I didn't see, but Sheffield grabbed the inmate from behind and body slammed him on his face and began cuffing him. Sheffield got covered in OC as well, due to the inmates being covered in it. As soon as Collins let me go, I stood still and watched. Up the stairs came 4 more officers, the captain and a lieutenant. The lieutenant came and asked me what happened. I started to explain, But he cut me off after he saw blood coming out of my left arm. After taking me out of the cell house, he made me lift my shirt because he saw the blood. He examined all my wounds. He had me remove all my equipment and hold paper towels to my arm. I was rushed to the ER. I was able to grab my phone out of my rental car. I had totaled my car a few weeks prior by hitting a deer. I called my wife and told her what happened. She called my parents and siblings. Luckily, my injuries weren't too bad. I was stabbed 4 times. Once on my left arm, just below the elbow, that was a through and through. Blade went in one side and out the other. Twice in the top of my left hand. And the one that hit my chest went in the skin. And hit one of my ribs, keeping it out of my lungs. Out of the 37 plunges, I think it's safe to say I'm lucky to be here writing this story. I didn't sleep for 2 days following the event. I still have nightmares almost daily. I'm always paranoid. I open carry a gun now. After my attack, I was forced to resign for safety reasons. Everyone statewide that works in Max prisons now has vests. None of the people from there talk to me anymore. I feel abandoned. I have one guy from that facility I still see, my sergeant, who wasn't there that night. Court is coming soon to add 3 more attempted murders on the guy. Turns out he was a shot caller for the Crips gang. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 471. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And I think, let me check something. Nope. That's not right. Come on, I'm sure I've got a thing to do here. Ah, right, okay, yes. The author of story number 2 has an Instagram account, our artist friend, and I will include a link in the description. Remember to yell at me and throw cabbages if I forget, so that I remember. Where is that? I've got that saved. Oh, there it is, sir. Instagram account is Happy Landfills. I will include a link. Okay, and with that, I'm running a little bit late tonight. My own fault, really. I should have started sooner, but I was a very bad Hellfreezer. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.